This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 130, Romancing Millennials, the Content Marketer's Guide to Engaging Gen Y. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is July 9th, 2015. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for episode number 130 of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes and on Stitcher, so if you're listening to this episode on the blog, you can click on over and subscribe. It means you'll get new episodes automatically delivered to your listening device of choice. And if you use a different app for your podcast listening pleasure, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link in the blog post. All month long, we are taking a closer look at some of the trends that are shaping the future of our work as content marketers. Last week, we gave you a recap of some of the most prominent developments from the first 6 months of 2015 that are shaping the future for us in our content marketing mission. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to check it out on iTunes or Stitcher or via the RSS feed. This week, we're focusing on one of those trends that are shaping our future, and that is the rise of the millennial generation, also known as Gen Y. But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. First up in today's feed, we've got some news out of Pinterest. Pinterest has announced it is rolling out buyable pins to iOS users in the United States, to those iPhone and iPad users. If you're not familiar with buyable pins, they are pins on Pinterest that let you buy the product from within Pinterest. So the old way, you would find a pin, you would click on it, it would take you to the retailer's website where you would take care of your transaction there. But with buyable pins, you can actually purchase items within Pinterest using, I believe they use Apple Pay. So this is now rolling out to iOS users in the United States. For retailers, there is a wait list. So as is the usual tactic, they are starting with the major retailers and gradually rolling it out until it is available to everyone. So if you are a retailer and you want to get in on buyable pins, do know that there is a wait list, but I have the URL for you where you can sign up for that list. You're going to want to go to business.pinterest.com/en/buyable-pins. That's BUYABLE-pins. So business.pinterest.com/en as in English /buyable-pins. And I'll also put that link in the blog post for today's episode. No word on when buyable pins will be released to all retailers, so you want to get on the list as soon as possible, and you will be among the first to know. Okay, some news out of Facebook. Facebook has announced another update, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, believe it or not. This has to do with videos. And again, when we talk about videos on Facebook, we're talking about native videos. Those are videos that have been uploaded to Facebook as opposed to YouTube videos that are linked to. But with those native videos, Facebook is now taking into account actions taken with those videos aside from liking, commenting on or sharing. For example, if a user sees a video, and of course those videos run on autoplay with the sound muted, if a user decides to turn on the sound or make the video full screen, Facebook is now taking those actions into account because it indicates a deeper level of interest. And so if a user turns on the sound or makes the video full screen, Facebook will take into account, okay, this user likes this particular kind of video, and so we will serve him or her more videos like this. And again, this person might not make the decision to either like the video, click the like button or comment on it or share it, but just by virtue of turning on the sound or making it full screen, they've indicated a level of interest, and Facebook is now taking that interest into account. So from our perspective as content marketers, it's all the more reason to create compelling videos, to make those videos so that someone really wants to turn the sound on. Someone wants to look at it full screen. Someone really wants to take in that content. And of course, Facebook is now going to reward us for videos that do just that. Okay, a third item in today's newsfeed is another video-related bit of news out of Facebook. And this one is quite exciting in that we now have a video tab on our page Insights. If you go to your Facebook page, click on Insights, you will now see a tab marked Videos, and that will show you the most viewed videos from the past month in terms of reach, in terms of views, and in terms of average completion. Now, that average completion is a percentage, and it's going to show you what percentage of the video the average viewer watched. So if your video is 1 minute long and the average person watched oh my gosh, I'm terrible at math. The average person watched 30 seconds of it. That would be a 50% average completion. So that's how that works. Just an aside on videos. A couple of weeks ago, I got I opened up my email first thing in the morning, and the first thing I saw was an email from my assistant. She said, "Am I seeing this right? Did your tip video from last week really rack up 16,000 in terms of reach?" And I looked over, and sure enough, one of my videos racked up 16,000, not 16,000 reach. So it appeared in 16,000 viewers' news feeds, and it got 116 views. So, that's, in my world, that's viral, because I've got a very modest Facebook page. I've got maybe 300 likes, a good sized community, but nothing stellar. But people really latched onto this video, and the topic happened to be how to stop wasting time on social media. So I'm guessing I put out something that really struck a nerve with a lot of people, and racked up a reach of 16,000. So you never know. And now that we have videos in those page insights, it's going to be a lot easier to keep track of the results from those videos. Okay, our content hit of the week is an interesting post called, "Is Your Content Marketing Career on Autopilot?" This is a post by Chuck Fry over on the Content Marketing Institute blog. And this is particularly relevant for my friends in the corporate world, or people who are working within organizations who are really focused on a career path. And we content marketers, we kind of have a tough road, because more traditional careers have more established career paths. Not so with content marketing, which is still, in the big picture, is still relatively new. So what Chuck points out in this post is that for content marketers, it's really easy to get into what he calls programmatic thinking, finding something that works and sticking with it. And he points out that while consistency is important, we can't keep changing tracks every other week, it's also vital to keep that skill set sharp and to keep up with the latest trends of what's going on, which fits in very well with our theme of this month. For example, if you look at the content marketer's career versus a career in, say, accounting, well, the principles of accounting are not going to change. Yes, your environment changes and economic condition changes, but accounting doesn't change from year to year. Contrast that with content marketing, where things change almost on a daily basis. So in this post, Chuck shares some really good advice on how to, number one, recognize the need for new skills, how to acquire those new skills, and how to apply them strategically. So highly recommend you give it a read, especially if you are one of my friends working in corporate environments or working for larger organizations. And I will provide that link in the blog post for this episode. That's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please shoot it on over to us so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment, Romancing Millennials, the Content Marketer's Guide to Engaging Gen Y. This month is all about the trends that are shaping the future of our work as content marketers. And today I want to talk about the rise of the millennial generation, also known as Gen Y, and what that means for us content marketers as we look to the future. Now, just to clarify, who we're talking about when we talk about millennials. According to Pew Research Center, millennials are people between the ages of 18 and 34 in 2015. So that roughly corresponds to having been born between the early 80s and the early 2000s. Now, among us older generations, and yes, I say us older generations, I am definitely a Gen X myself, there's a tendency to think of millennials / Gen Y as quote unquote the kids. Okay. A lot of us still think of this generation as the high school kids, the college kids. They're texting, they're tweeting, they're taking selfies. And there's a tendency not to take this generation too seriously. We need to change that. No question about it. And just to highlight some evidence to that effect, Pew Research Center, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, they recently released a report that Gen Ys are now the largest demographic in the U.S. workforce. Okay, the millennial workforce is now 53.5 million strong, and 1 in 3 workers in the United States is now in that millennial age group. So what does that mean to us marketers? Well, if you're on the B2B side, the business-to-business side, that means more millennials are going to be moving into those decision-making positions. Okay, they're going to be controlling budgetary dollars. They're going to be controlling those vendor relationships. And so it definitely serves us to be speaking more to the needs of that generation. And if you're on the B2C side, the business-to-consumer side, it's important to us too, because millennials are becoming grown-up consumers. Okay, they are getting married, they are starting families, they are buying homes. Just a couple of weeks ago, the front page of the Houston Business Journal featured a story about millennial home buyers and what they're looking for, and how home builders are now starting to recognize those needs and to cater to those needs, because this is a large generation. They are getting into, they're getting better and better jobs, and they are buying homes with those dollars, and they're buying a whole lot of other stuff. So whether you're on the B2B side or the B2C side, we need to recognize the power of the millennial generation. Yes, gone is the image of the Gen Y as a college kid eating ramen noodles and sleeping on a futon. Okay, these folks are grown up. They are full-fledged consumers, and we need to start speaking to their needs. So, as content marketers, how can we, in the line of our work, better serve the needs and desires of this powerful and growing demographic? The first thing we can do, and this is kind of obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway, is to stay true to our mission as content marketers, which is delivering value through content. If we look at millennials and their needs and their desires and what they expect from brands, it is absolutely in line with the mission of content marketing. Millennials grew up in an environment where they were surrounded by marketing. Okay, they grew up in knowing 24/7 television. Okay, they grew up knowing the internet. Many of them don't remember a time without Facebook. Okay, the average millennial, and this is not scientific, it's just kind of a feeling I have. I believe that if you look at the number of ads the average millennial has seen by the age of 20, that's probably more than a lot of earlier generations saw their entire lives. Okay, they've grown up just surrounded by marketing, and as a result, it just kind of becomes white noise. They're just kind of immune to it. It's always there. It's always around them. And as a result, they kind of develop this blindness and deafness when it comes to an obvious marketing message. So as content marketers, that's our mission to not to to see these communications as a bullhorn, but rather to see these opportunities to provide value. And in fact, I wrote a blog post earlier this week, and the title was Content Marketing Plus Millennials Equals a Match Made in Heaven. Because the true content marketers gives millennials exactly what they want and expect from brands, which is delivering value before they even think about coming on with anything that sounds like a marketing message or a sales pitch. So this first bullet item is not so much a marching order as an affirmation. And I would say if you are if you think that content marketing is effective with Gen X and baby boomers, you're going to love what it does for you among millennials, because it is absolutely in line with what they want and expect from the brands that they follow. Okay, the second thing we can do as content marketers is to start thinking about building communities. Remember, Gen Ys are connectors. They have, most of them have grown up on Facebook, connecting with their friends, texting with their friends, checking in, seeing who's where, what everybody's doing. And they want to get connected and stay connected with people who have similar interests. Now, this is in direct contrast to Gen X, and I can say this as a Gen X. We want to be left the heck alone. I mean, really, if you get right down to it, unless you're stopping by to tell me that MTV is showing videos again, just leave me be and, let me put on my headphones and do my thing. But Gen Ys are very much, they very much want to be connected and they want to be part of communities. So as content marketers, it would serve us very well to explore ways to build a community around your brand, to encourage your audience not only to connect with you, but to connect with each other, and to share that experience of being a follower of your brand. And we can do this many different ways. We can do community chats, we can do formal forums, we can do hashtag conversations, we can do Twitter chats. There are many, many ways we can start to think about building those communities. Just as an aside, it's funny, my husband and I have really latched on to this show on AMC. It's called Halt and Catch Fire. Don't know if you checked it out, but it's a drama. It's from the creators of Mad Men, and it's built around the early days of the consumer computer industry in the mid-1980s. And it's kind of fun for us to watch, especially for my husband, because he is a programmer, and yes, he did have a Commodore 64 back in the day, but it's been especially interesting lately because this fictitious company that the show focuses around is creating a very one of the very early online gaming forums where you could go on and play chess or checkers or very simple video games with other users. And as part of the storyline, they recently created a community aspect of this gaming this gaming site, and they're really kind of exploring that sense of wonder, being able to go online and actually connect with someone and have a conversation with them. And it's funny to see that because they are just awed by this ability, whereas now that is not only commonplace but expected, especially among millennial audience. They expect to connect with you and to connect with others within the community that is built around your brand. So we would do ourselves a service by looking at ways to build and enhance those communities. And the third thing that we definitely want to do is be human. And again, very much in line with the philosophy of content marketing. If everything you put out there is slick, polished, reviewed and approved by 5 different different committees within your organization and comes out reading like a press release, millennials will not give you a second thought. As we said a few minutes ago, they have seen more marketing messages probably by age 5 than a lot of us have seen in many, many more years. And it all becomes white noise. So in fact, I'd be willing to bet that, those polished, over-reviewed, over-edited marketing messages, if you remove your company name, it could probably have been published by any one of your competitors. But what millennials are looking for is a very human interaction. They want to know, they don't want to see the photoshopped version. They want to know you. They want to know who you are, who are your people, what's your mission, what are your passions. And the best example I can think of this principle is the U.S. Army. Now, I joke when I talk about the U.S. Army in my speaking, because when you think of hip happening brands that are on the cutting edge, the U.S. Army usually doesn't come to mind, right? They're viewed as pretty staid and solid and do things the way we've always done. But think about their target audience. They're trying to reach 18 to 22-year-olds. So they created this site called Army Strong Stories, where real soldiers and real family members can share their stories, and they can say anything within certain guidelines. A soldier can't go on and give coordinates and talk about, where they're going to be moving and tactical things like that, but they can share their stories, including they can get on there and say, hey, I really hate this. I wish I'd never signed up for this. Because the Army recognized that the age group that they are targeting, for these folks, be all you can be is just not going to cut it. They want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. They want to know that human side of the story. And I remember seeing an interview with someone, a vice president with the agency of record for the U.S. Army, their marketing agency. And he said, if you have the good, the bad, and the ugly out there, it gives the good that much more credibility because people are going to believe it. If all they see are wonderful, glowing, wow, I'm so happy to be in the Army, this is great, this is awesome, they're going to say, please, this can't be, this can't be right. It's only one side of the story. But by creating this site, this Army Strong Story site, where they can show the real human side of the story and show it to folks and let them ask questions and get those questions answered and really engage with those folks, it really helps them engage with the brand on a much deeper level. So, as content marketers, we need to be constantly vigilant that, number one, content has got to read like it's written by a human being and not by a PR agency and, gone through multiple rounds of committee reviews. We need to make sure that we are writing in a very human tone. We also need to make sure that we are sharing visuals that emphasize that human element. I have a client in the oil and gas industry, and a couple of years ago, they had one of their colleagues went out on vacation, and while he was out, they pranked him, and they covered his entire desk and all his accessories in aluminum foil. Now, that's a common office prank. You've probably heard of it. But we went ahead and took a photo of that and put it out on their Facebook page. And if you know the oil and gas industry, it is old school, conservative, but you know what? There are a lot of millennials in that industry. And when we put out that photo of the desk of the pranked employee covered in aluminum foil, we got a tremendous amount of positive feedback because, it's not that slick, polished brand. It's that, hey, we're people. We like to have fun. We like to, we're a team. We work together. We have fun together. And part of that includes pranking people while they're on vacation. So, make sure you're sharing those visuals. If you're heading to a trade show, post a photo of your team packing up and getting ready to go. Unretouched, non-Photoshop, just very real images. Another thing we can do to emphasize that human side is to give voice to the other people in your organization. Don't make content this silo of the marketing and PR team. Really let your audience get to know the other people in your organization on a very personal level. This is something that, for example, a brand like Southwest Airlines does beautifully. They are constantly introducing a new team member. Recently they had, I saw a post that there was it was around National Roller Coaster Day, whatever roller coaster that happened to be, whatever day that happened to be. And so they gave over the reins of their blog to one of their team members who happens to love roller coasters and has made it his mission to ride every roller coaster on the planet. And, just think about how that just takes your connection to a brand to a deeper level. Really getting to know Jason Miller, who has made it his mission to ride every roller coaster on the planet. And that post got tons of reviews, tons of likes. People were chiming in, talking about roller coaster they'd ridden. And when we talk about the human aspect, that is what it's all about. And if you start doing things like that, your community will respond, especially your millennial audience, because that is what they crave. Okay, so that is my take on some ways that content marketers can better serve this growing audience of millennials and this generation that is growing not only in size but also in purchasing power and in power within organizations. So we need to make sure that we continue to serve their needs on a regular basis and keep our finger on the pulse of what this generation is wanting and making sure we deliver it. Okay, if you have any questions or want to add to the conversation, or if you have some strategies to share on connecting with millennial audiences, I would love to hear from you, and I will give that contact info at the end of the podcast. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk a little bit more about building communities. When I mention that to clients, sometimes I'll get a reaction like, oh, we're going to have to build this separate area of our website for our forum, and it's going to be all this trouble and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't have to be that way. Think about if you were starting a club. You wouldn't go out and rent a building right off the bat, right? You would find a place, preferably rent-free, maybe a church room or a community room somewhere where you could meet up, or maybe a bar or restaurant where you could meet up. And then as things grew, then maybe you might see about doing something more formal. Well, online community building is no different. Start simple. Start by for example, start by creating some content based on audience input. So ask them, pick a topic, ask them to tweet their best tip on this topic. And then as those tweets roll in, you can do two things. You can retweet those tweets, and you can create a blog post where you share the results. I mean, people love to see their names on different sites. They like to see themselves quoted. So create a blog post and then invite other people to comment and then kind of keep that conversation going. That's just one example of a very simple way to get your audience engaged and to start cultivating a community mindset and to let it grow from there. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it, and I so appreciate those of you who have already left a review. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our website at resonancecontent.com, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and other social networks. I also invite you to check out our monthly webinar series. Now, these are usually on the fourth Wednesday of the month, but this month, because of vacation schedules and things being a little up in the air, we are doing something different. We are offering a webinar on demand. So this is still in the works, but it's going to be a webinar that we are going to put out there that you can watch at your leisure or your leisure, depending on your pronunciation preferences. And so stay tuned. I will definitely, by next week's podcast, I will have a URL for you to go to engage in that webinar on demand. Okay, as always, I like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from John Hancock. Very fitting, since we in the States recently celebrated our Independence Day. John Hancock once said, quote, "The greatest ability in business is to get along with others and to influence their actions," unquote. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.